Not every gift you should accept, not every competition should someone join. Sometimes, it's better to leave it alone. And before you join, ask yourself, do you really know the person organizing it?
Two people, a love so big, even the gods took notice. Amara and Emeka. Their hearts beat as one, their laughter filled the air, and their love was as pure as morning flower. They worked side by side on their farm, shared their meals, ate from the same plate, dreamed beneath the same stars. A love so true, it seemed untouchable. But one man saw it, then wanted it for himself. King Sam, powerful, feared, and used to getting whatever he desired. When his eyes fell on Amara, he saw not a woman, but something to claim. And from that moment, their story of love turned into a tale of pain, betrayal, and vengeance. In a peaceful small town, where the forest was green, the waters calm, and the birds sang sweetly, lived the couple, Amara and Emeka. They were young, deeply in love. Amara, just 25, was a woman whose beauty drew eyes wherever she went. Her dark skin glowed like polished ebony under the sun. But her true beauty was in her heart. She was humble, gentle, and always ready to help, no matter how little she had. Her husband, Emeka, was a farmer. Strong, patient, proud of his work. Together they tilled the small land he inherited from his father, planting yam, cassava, and vegetables. One bright day at the market, they saw an old woman being scolded. She had forgotten her purse. Without a second thought, Amara and Emeka paid for her goods. The woman looked at them with trembling hands and said, "May your kindness return to you, in ways you cannot imagine." They smiled, not knowing the weight of that blessing. But not all blessings come easily. Though the couple was loved by all, they carried a quiet sorrow. 3 years of marriage, and no child. At first, whispers were soft. Then, they grew louder. Some pitied Amara. Others mocked her. At night, beneath a sky full of stars, she would lie awake beside her husband, heart heavy. Emeka comforted her. But even love cannot silence the ache of waiting. Time passed. And soon came the season of harvest. That year, King Sam announced the Great Yam Festival. A day when farmers across the land brought their biggest yams for the king's prize. Emeka's harvest was good. But one yam, it was so large. He stared at it in disbelief. Amara laughed softly, proud of her husband's strength. Together, they prepared for the festival. Their hearts light for the first time in months. When the day came, drums filled the town square. Farmers displayed their yams before the cheering crowd. But none could match Emeka's. Even the king rose from his throne, amazed. The crowd roared. And Emeka was named the winner. He received his reward: a goat, bags of grain, a patch of cowries. But as the celebration faded, the king's gaze lingered. Not on the yam, not on the farmer who grew it, but on Amara. And from that moment, their lives would never remain the same. They say the heart of a king should be full of wisdom, but that day, King Sam's eyes saw not the pride of a farmer, they saw a woman. Amara's beauty shone brighter than the prize she came to witness. Days passed, and strange gifts began to appear at Amara and Emeka's hut: fine clothes, baskets of oil, and food. At first, they thought it was the king rewarding Emeka's victory. But the truth came with a royal message: the king wished to see Amara at the palace. She went, clothed in her simplest wrapper, her heart pure, her head bowed. But when she entered the throne room, the king's eyes told another story. He praised her beauty and spoke words no married woman should ever hear. "Marry me," he said. "I will give you a life your poor farmer husband never could." Amara stepped back, her chest rising with disbelief. "No amount of gold can make me betray my husband," she said. Her voice trembled, but her spirit did not. She left the palace with anger burning in her chest, unaware that the king's pride had been wounded. And a wounded king is more dangerous than a hungry lion. That evening when Amara returned home, she narrated everything King Sam said to her husband. Emeka stood up angrily ready to confront the king, but Amara held him back. She pet him, rubbing his arms. Emeka, be calm. King Sam is powerful. Let's just run away instead. And like that, Emeka listened to her soft voice and they agreed to run to another town that night. That night, thunder roared across the sky. The wind tore through their hut, rain flooded their farm, and as Amara stood in the storm, she whispered, "Even the heavens have turned against us." At dawn, the town crier's gong echoed through the streets. The king had summoned every farmer to the palace. Emeka knew trouble was near, but to disobey a king meant certain death. He left home that morning, promising to return before nightfall. But night came, and Emeka did not return. Amara waited until the moon climbed high, her eyes fixed on the road that led to the palace. When morning came, she heard whispers that some men had returned, only to be summoned again. Her heart raced. She ran to the palace gates, but the guards blocked her way. No matter how she begged or cried, they refused to let her through. "Go home, woman," one said, pushing her to the ground. "Your husband now serves the king," another added. Amara wept there on the dusty floor until her strength left her. Still, she returned day after day, under the burning sun, through the pouring rain, calling out Emeka's name. But by the fourth day, her body could no longer carry her sorrow. She collapsed inside her hut. Her neighbor, Tay, found her lying weak and burning with fever. Her neighbor quickly rushed to call the healer for Amara. The village healer came quickly, tending to her with herbs and chants. After a long pause, the old woman smiled softly and said, "You carry life within you. Amara, you are with child." Tears filled Amara's eyes. She pressed her hands to her belly and whispered words of gratitude. At last, the gods had remembered her. She and Emeka would have a child. The next morning, though still weak, she wrapped herself in her finest cloth and walked through the village with her head high. But as she passed, people turned away. Their eyes were strange, their whispers heavy with secrets she did not know. When she reached the palace, the guards were waiting. They said the king had summoned her again. She asked why, but they gave no answer, only led her into the great hall. The room was filled with chiefs in fine robes. At the center sat King Sam, adorned in gold and pride. When Amara stood before him, the hall fell silent. The king spoke, his voice cold and sharp. He said Emeka had committed a crime, that he had stolen from the king himself. The words struck Amara like thunder. Her knees trembled. Her heart refused to believe it. "My husband cannot steal," she cried. "He has never taken what isn't his. You are only doing this because I refused you." The crowd gasped, and King Sam's face darkened. He slammed his staff on the floor. "Guards!" he shouted. 2 guards seized Amara by the arms. She fought them, crying out for mercy, but the king's command was law. He told her to beg for forgiveness if she wished to see her husband again. Amara fell to her knees, her tears falling fast. "Please," she begged. "Save my husband. Save Emeka." But her pleas meant nothing. Then the king delivered the blow that broke her spirit. Emeka was dead, beaten until his final breath. A scream tore from her chest, a sound that carried beyond the palace walls. When she awoke, she was back in her hut, thrown there like a lifeless thing. That night, she sat by the doorway, calling her husband's name into the wind. Her voice rose to the heavens. She called on the gods to see what the king had done, to avenge the innocent blood spilled upon the earth. By dawn, her tears were gone. In their place was something stronger, resolve. She touched her belly and whispered, "I will live for you." She tried to live quietly after that day. Each morning, she went to the stream to fetch water, her steps slow but steady. But everywhere she turned, she felt the weight of the villagers' eyes. Some pitied her, others whispered cruel words behind her back. One morning, 3 women stood by the well. their laughter sharp as knives. As Amara passed, one of them said, "So this is the wife of the thief." The others burst into laughter. Amara stopped, her chest rose and fell. "Do not speak my husband's name with those mouths of yours," she said, her eyes burning. "He was not a thief." She turned away, her head high, but her hands trembled. That evening, she went to the palace grounds, hoping to find truth for herself, but what she found broke her heart beyond repair. Emeka had been buried among criminals, a place of shame, where broken pots and rubbish covered the earth. His name was not even marked. Amara fell to her knees, pressing her palm to the soil. Her tears soaked the ground beside his grave. She lifted her voice to the heavens and vowed that the gods would judge the wicked king and avenge the innocent. Days turned to weeks, her belly grew, and with every kick of the child within, she remembered Emeka's smile, his laughter, his dreams. The world had turned its back on her, but her heart still burned with love. Then one evening, as she waited around the grave, the king's guards arrived again. They ordered her to the palace. She refused, but they dragged her there by force. King Sam greeted her with a smile that chilled her blood. He offered her riches and comfort if she would stay in the palace as his wife, but Amara saw through his deceit and refused boldly. "The land you found belongs to me now," the king said, his laughter cold. "Emeka's land is mine. That land belongs to my husband." She shouted, her voice shaking with fury, but the king only waved his hand, and the guards pushed her out of the hall. When she returned home, her hut was in ruins, the roof torn apart, her few belongings scattered in the mud. Guards stood watch, ensuring no one came near to help. She went to her neighbors, knocking on their doors, but one by one, they shut her out. No one wanted to anger the king, no one wanted to share her curse. Only one person opened her door, the old woman Amara and Emeka had once helped in the market. Her hands trembled with age, but her heart was brave. She brought Amara inside, fed her, massaged her swollen feet, and let her sleep on her bed. When the king's men learned that someone was sheltering Amara, they warned the village. Whoever helped her would be put to death, but the old woman said, "I am too close to my grave to fear a wicked king." Months passed, Amara's belly grew heavy, and the old woman hid her from everyone. She went to the market alone, fetched water alone, kept Amara safe within her walls. But one stormy night, thunder rolled across the sky, the same thunder that once took her husband. Amara's labor began. The old woman ran through the rain to fetch the healer, but fear had chained every heart in the village. No one came, so she returned alone, trembling, to find Amara on the floor, crying out in pain. "Hold on, my daughter," she whispered, but the night was merciless. Amara's voice grew weak, her body trembling with every breath. Then, with one final cry, her voice changed, strong, fierce, filled with power. "I will return," she said. "I will not rest until justice is done." And with those words, her body went still. The old woman wept beside her through the storm. Lightning flashed across the sky as if the gods themselves had seen what was lost. 2 years passed. The story of Amara and Emeka faded from the tongues of men. Their love, their pain, their cries for justice became nothing but whispers carried by the wind. But the gods had not forgotten. That year, a stranger came to town. She was calm, graceful, and her beauty made people stop mid-step. She called herself Amaka and opened a small store. By the market square, she sold herbs and oils that healed faster than any medicine people knew. Her smile was gentle, her words kind, and soon everyone in the town began to love her. The women said she brought peace. The men said her beauty was a gift from the gods. Even the palace guards bought from her, and her name reached the ears of King Sam. When the yam festival arrived, drums filled the air and laughter rolled through the town. People danced in colors bright as sunrise, and King Sam stood tall, proud of his people's harvest. When the farmers came forward with their yams, the crowd gasped, for among them stood a young woman. She was breathtaking, beauty so radiant it seemed unearthly. Her skin glowed, her presence commanded silence. In her hands, she carried the largest yam of all. The king's eyes widened. He asked who she was, and with a graceful bow, she called herself Amaka. Pleased, King Sam declared her the winner of the festival and, before all, made her his wife. From that moment, Amaka moved into the palace. The king adored her more than all his other wives combined. Whatever she said, he obeyed. The palace changed, laughter turned to silence, and even the chiefs noticed how the king began to forget his duties. But when Amaka was alone, her sweet smile faded, her eyes darkened like storm clouds. "You will regret crossing me, King Sam," she whispered. "For I am not Amaka. I am Amara returned." Days passed, and her hold over the king grew stronger. Then came one quiet evening, the night that changed everything. King Sam had been restless, nightmares had to trouble his sleep. He dreamt of a woman with blazing eyes, holding a knife that dripped red. Her voice thundered in his head, "You destroyed my home. You destroyed my husband's life." He woke drenched in sweat, gasping for air. Amaka sat beside him, her face calm, her voice soft like wine through the trees. "My king, you are not well," she said. "All this stress. It is that farm of yours. You work too hard for it. Let it go. Sell it, and you will find peace." The king turned to her, trembling. "That farm. It is my pride, Amaka. Everything I have comes from there." Amaka placed her hand gently on his. "Gold does not rot, my king. Crops can fail, but gold remains. If you love me, do this." Her words slipped into his heart like poison wrapped in honey, and though he knew it was wrong, he nodded slowly. "If it pleases you, then I will." And that was the beginning of his fall. The next morning, King Sam sold his greatest farm to foreigners. The people murmured, his wives wept, but the king would hear no one but Amaka. With his gold in hand, he laughed proudly, believing himself richer than ever. The next day after he sold the farm, Amaka took among the gold and stepped out elegantly. People watched and admired the beautiful queen. She greeted them, but deep down she didn't wish them well. She arrived at old woman's hut, the old woman who helped her when no one does. Amaka greeted her gently, though the old woman didn't knew her, but she have heard about the beautiful queen. "What are you doing here, my queen?" the old woman asked in fear. Amaka saying nothing but smile. The old woman was now older. Amaka pitied the life she lived now. "I'm not here to harm you, Grandma." Amaka replied softly. That was when the old woman smiled. Without wasting time, Amaka gave her the gold. The old woman was overjoyed. She hugged Amaka tightly. "What do I do to deserve this?" she asked slowly. "The goodness you did some years back." Amaka replied briefly, so as not to scare the old woman. After that, she left the old woman's hut, and now her revenge just started. But not long after, the gold began to vanish, slowly at first, then all at once. He searched the palace, shouted at his guards, cursed the gods. Yet nothing was found. Night after night, the dreams returned, Amora's face haunting him, her voice echoing in his ears. "You took everything from me, King Sam. Now, the gods take everything from you." The king's health worsened. He grew thin, pale, and fearful. The chiefs whispered that madness had taken him. The people said the gods had turned their backs. Then, one cold night, laughter filled the courtyard, soft, strange, and familiar. King Sam looked up and saw her standing there, glowing under the moonlight. "Do you not know me, King Sam?" she asked. He fell to his knees. "Amaka, please, save me." She smiled, bitter and cold. "I am not Amaka. I am Amara, the wife of Emeka, the one you destroyed." "Amara!" the king called, scared. Falling to the ground, he collapsed. His crown rolled into the dust, and it was his guards that found him the next morning. From that day, the palace was silent. They said the king had gone mad, but Amaka, no, Amara, sat quietly in her chamber, smiling to herself. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. Then came the rains, heavy and endless. Crops washed away, hunger spread, and fear ruled the town. The villagers had nothing to eat. They feared hunger would kill them. One afternoon, the three women who mocked Amara earlier were chatting and laughing in one of their rooms when Amara appeared before them. Two long, fat canes in her hand, you will pay for mocking my pain, Amara said. Her voice rang through the room. The women jumped in shock. Ghost! They screamed. Amara laughed before striking them continuously, giving them no chance to escape. Their screams filled the air as she struck them, their cries echoing through the room. Please, Amara, spare us. They begged, but their pleas meant nothing to her. After beating them till they were badly injured, she disappeared, leaving them alone. The women ran outside, saying they saw Amara, but the villagers laughed, calling them mad, just like the king. Inside the palace, King Sam grew weaker by the day. No wife came near him. His chiefs kept their distance. He sat alone in the dark, haunted by what he had done. Then one night, as thunder rolled across the sky, Amara appeared in his chamber, in a beautiful white gown, holding her cane. King Sam jumped in fear, and Amara laughed. She loved the fear on his face. How he begged for mercy. She had once begged him, and now it felt right that he should beg her. But she did not hear his pleas. She struck him with her long cane, and he cried out in pain. Confess, King Sam, she said. Let the truth set your soul free. Trembling, the king fell to his knees. I will confess. I will tell all. The next morning, the town gathered. With weak hands and shaking lips, King Sam spoke before them. I loved Amara, but she did not love me. So I captured her husband, Emeka. He died in my hands. I lied that he stole, and I took their home and land. I wanted her to have nothing but me. But she chose death over me. The people gasped. Cries filled the air, you wicked king. A disgrace to the throne. Leave the throne. They shouted, dragging him away from his chair. The king was banished into the forbidden bush. He was stripped of his crown, his gold, and his pride, left alone in the forest, where he drew his last breath. No one buried him. It was the birds and beasts that fed on his remains. Back in the town, the people wept. They went to Emeka's grave and to Amara's, cleaned the ground, laid flowers, and built statues in their honor, a reminder that the gods see all and justice never sleeps. From afar, Amara, watched with tears in her eyes. My revenge is complete, she whispered. Now, I can rest. And like a flame fading into the wind, she disappeared. After King Sam's death, the heavy rain stopped, the floodwaters slowly drew back. And the land began to breathe again. The sun rose bright for the first time in many moons, birds returned to the trees, and the soil, once cursed, began to yield crops once more. The people walked hand in hand, sharing what little they had until the harvest grew plenty again. Laughter returned to the markets, children played by the riverside, and peace spread across the town like dawnlight. But no one ever forgot the couple, Amara and Emeka. Every year, the people gathered at their graves with flowers and food, telling their children the story of love, betrayal, and justice. The elders would say, let this remind us all, when love is pure, it cannot die. And when the innocent cry, the gods always hear. From that day on, no king ruled with cruelty again. The people lived in harmony, their hearts bound by the lesson Amara left behind. The end. This story teaches us, never misuse power, for the cries of the innocent always rise against the wicked. Tell us one or two things you learned from this story. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.